Hello and welcome to the Nonprofits. I'm Stephen Harder. The Church of England is making waves with a provocative choice. Is it sincere or just performative? Flabbergasted, tell us all about it.
The Church of England has, for the first time in its nearly 500-year history, appointed a woman into its most senior role, the Archbishop of Canterbury, a decision that many believe to be either impossible or unlikely. Dame Sarah Molali, however, is used to breaking the glass ceiling, as prior to her role in the church, she was the youngest chief nursing officer in the NHS's history. In her first address as the Archbishop of Canterbury, Mullally leans into her nursing background to talk about healing and caring for people in desperation and decrying hatred and racism in society. She discusses hope for those in war-torn environments and for those living in poverty. She also goes on to thank women who came before her for their support and inspiration. Critically, though, she speaks to the history of the church's failing to address the misuses of power and promises to do better and actually listen to victims. Will she be the change the Church of England needs to find itself in the modern era? Or will she simply be the poster woman for change that never actually happens? This was reported by Imogen Janes with the British Broadcasting Corporation on October 3rd, 2025.
I am not a fan of any church in particular, but leadership like this is honey to my ears. I wish we could hear more stories like this. Eli, what was your first reaction when you saw this announcement about Sarah's appointment?
I think so. At first, it's a thing to celebrate, I think, to see women achieving positions or things that previously they were barred from achieving, right? I think that's a good thing. But then what I also can't help but think about is let's not celebrate that they're finally catching up, which is what I really think this is. It's been accepted, I think, by those that don't have by humanists, I guess I can say broadly, that men and women are equal. Women should be allowed to do all the things men should be allowed to do. And the Catholic Church is kind of just catching up to that, or this archdiocese is just catching up to that, to okay, well, yeah, now a woman can be in charge. I do think it's a good thing, but not too little, too late. But I mean, long time coming, I guess we could say.
Yeah, for sure. Let's take the W when we can, right? But let's not relinquish the pressure to continue to see more progress and more change. This isn't, we can give at least a golf clap, and maybe because this will hopefully still have ramifications on the future, or will it? Flabbergasted, do you feel like this is genuine progress, or is it a symbolic gesture? Where do you land?
I think it's really hard to tell sometimes, especially at the front of it, right? Right now, the fact that she is given this role, she's been chosen for this role, right, is progress. That in and of itself is progress. If it actually leads to greater progress as a reflection of this is a much bigger question. The tricky part is that sometimes you can have a person who has been barred from a particular position, and then when they're in that position, they don't necessarily do better than anyone else who's there before. And sometimes it is also a way for people who want to pull things back to give it the appeal of progress, to use it to rip out rights from underneath this. We see that happening in Japan right now, if anyone's familiar with the international politics, right? They have their first ever female prime minister who is very, 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 very conservative and opposes a lot of things about women's rights that a lot of people have been pushing for. So that would be a symbolic gesture. In this case, because of the ideas that this that Mullally holds, it is encouraging, right? It is a major systemic change. The question does still remain, is it going to be real? Is it going to be a facade? Is it going to be an attempt that fails? Those are all options, and we're not going to know until we actually start seeing progress and see what happens next.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that tension as well. Even here in Canada, we were our liberal government was they were on death row, and we kind of knew that once the next federal election came around that we'd be seeing a change, and then the conservative leader, he made the wrong play and he resembled too much of another world figure, and whoosh, like we would vote for anyone who was not doing a pumpkin imitation. And now we're like, oh, so we voted for this guy because he wasn't like that, but oh, who is he really? Questions are arising. And we're going to have to see what exactly the bet is that we made. Eli, when you listened to Mullally's speech, was there anything that stood out to you specifically about what she had to say?
Yeah, I think she definitely had she said some things that on the surface I agree with. Like if that's how she truly believes, I'm like, yeah, we agree on a lot of things. She emphasized, like, for example, Catholics in England standing with the Jewish community in England against anti-Semitism, and standing like with other groups against hate speech. The title of the article included her quote that hatred and racism cannot tear us apart. So she seems to be speaking out against those things, and about addressing the abuse of power that is so like obvious and ubiquitous throughout not just the Catholic Church, but that's her domain. I don't know if it's right to say, but that's where she exists. So that's where she's going to address, and I think those are great things for sure. But as Flabbergasted said, I think that time will tell if it's just like a performance or if some good is going to come of it. Righto.
Flabbergasted, you looked into some of her policies too. What stood out to you?
I like a lot of her policies and a lot of her stances. A lot of them are relatively progressive. There's one thing that stuck out that I'm not super happy about. And I think it's not just the topic itself that I'm not so happy about, but the fact that it seems to be like her big thing. And it's like, of all the pressing issues in the world, that's the one you're going to stand on business on. And that is, she is opposed to death with dignity laws. And so she, I hold the belief that a person's right to life includes a person's right to choose their own end. I realize that's tricky, and I realize that's messy, and I realize there's potential issues of abuse and manipulation. But that doesn't mean that the right doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that there isn't a way forward to give people that option instead of forcing people to suffer through until they die on their own accord. That's rough. But that's what she wants to stand on business on. Like she's pro LGBTQIA plus. She's pro-choice, right? These are things that she are her official stances. How pro-choice? I mean, as pro-choice as at least you could be as part of the Anglican Church, but speaks very positively for those things, and like those are major issues that are facing the world today. And a stance on something like death with dignity, I understand that's important to people, but like look at the world going on. What's going on around us? Like who is suffering more? The people who are like given an opportunity to die with dignity, or like the LGBTQIA plus community? That's the thing you want to stand on business with. That bothers me a little bit. Yeah.
Like, is there a chance that that's how she's like throwing them a bone? Like the conservatives a bone? Like, yeah, I'm progressive on all this, but like, let's just consider this. See, I'm not all awful. Let me give you conservatives a ray of hope that you can cling on to while I march these other balls down these other fields. Like, could that be a component in there?
I'm not sure. It's hard to say. I feel like if this was the bone that she was throwing the conservatives, it's not a meaty bone for anybody. I think is kind of the point. But Eli, you were trying to jump in with something on it as well.
No, yeah, and I'm glad I waited because it was not as important. You said the right thing, and I said the wrong thing. It's the Anglican Church, not the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were giving the Catholic Church way too much credit here by assuming that they're making progress, because they're not.
Yeah. Well, I got it wrong. And that's not even the first time I've done that on this show. I did that like well over a year ago too, and I thought I learned my lesson.
Not every church is the Catholic Church.
They're all going to hell because they're not evangelical. It doesn't matter. Yeah, and and like just as a personal anecdote, like for me, right to life, right to death, dying with dignity. For me, it was for a long time. It was like a non-issue because it hadn't impacted me personally. And then when it did enter my sphere, and I had to watch a loved one deny, the assistance to live. And realizing that, oh yeah, he, like the doctor said, yeah, he's on his way out, and just to watch him struggle and struggle and struggle, and just wanting so badly for them just to have release, and that was the first time I ever actually looked into, like, okay, what does MAID look like? And then it's just like, oh, okay. And thank God it wasn't required, because it was a short downhill battle after that. But like a couple weeks later, I saw someone's yard sign that said, "Made to live, not made to die." And I was just like, oh my fool! Like, that is a sign that is being put out by someone who has never actually been impacted by the reality of what that choice means. And maybe this is Mullally's privilege now too, and maybe that's something that she can be disabused of when it impacts her a little bit more closely, perhaps. I don't know.
I feel like it's like it comes from her background as a nurse, so I doubt it's like something she's never witnessed. But I do feel like that some people can still have like a lack of, I don't want to say lack of sympathy, but maybe a lack of sympathy for people who are suffering, simply because some people view suffering as a good thing. Some people are saying, well, it's better to suffer and live than to not suffer and be dead. And that is a position of privilege for someone who has never suffered, and to that same degree. Because if you have someone who's suffering so much, they're like, you know what? There is genuinely no hope for the future. Like, not just a depression issue, but like a medical issue. Like I'm terminal, and I'm tortured by my condition on a daily. And it's like, let me go out on my own terms. They're like, nope, you get to live as long as God wants you to. Like, stop sticking your beliefs in other people's lives. And that's the whole problem here, right? Like, there are real moral questions around death with dignity. One of them is not what God wants.
Yeah. Wow. Yep. Sorry. I'll stop the personal anecdotes there. Eli, part of Mullally's legacy will depend on how she handles past scandals, which, believe it or not, there are a couple in the rearview mirror of the churches that we know. What comes to mind for you when you think about that tightrope that a church leader needs to balance upon?
I got the feeling that's sort of what she was thinking of most when she talked about addressing abuses within the church, or the history of abuse within the church, coming in right off the heels of like her predecessor stepped down after having been found to have like covered up child sex abuse, I think it was. So coming into that sort of, and coming into the aftermath of that, and of course, like, the right thing to do, kind of like what I said, the right thing to do is say out loud, yes, of course we need to address this, but as you said, it's going to depend a lot on like how she handles it. So I think if we start to see, like, if I see like one or two examples from her saying like, hey, I just found out this person in my church was covering up abuse and I want them out, and she like reports them, and they like, and maybe not in her church, but like just somewhere, she has an archdiocese now. So like, if she starts weeding out abusers and actually doing something about it, then yeah, I genuine applause from me on that side. And it's not to say like congratulations to her as well, just for achieving it, right? Like, it's a huge thing for her. I'm sure it's something that like in her whole lifetime, like it's an achievement of the lifetime for her, I imagine.
Well, who knows? Maybe next she'll be promoted to like whatever St. Peter's position is.
Yeah, but I guess it's just me. It's
her life then. It'll be
but it's definitely prestigious in her arena, and which is huge for anybody, and worthy of congratulations. but still to be seen what she will do, and that's where I will determine my, I guess, her efficacy.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Anglican Church, the only position higher than hers is the king.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
maybe she's next up on the docket for that.
Is that how this? Do they have the succession of powers the same way we do?
John Goodman. Deep cut. Was that a deep cut? Sorry, you gotta watch the movie yourself.
King Ralph. That okay. I know of it. I've heard it.
A flabbergasted. How like this is so nice. Like, oh, look at this progress. Like, how can the public trust be rebuilt in an institution like this that has so much baggage, so much damage in its wake? Like, maybe we're the wrong crowd to be answering that question. But like, is it possible to be rebuilding trust?
I mean, yeah, you can always rebuild trust. I feel like when you have an organization that is so seeped in, I mean, at least it's not the Catholic Church, right? When we talk about seeped in corruption, but when you have an organization that is, regularly seeped in scandals, sometimes it's just better to let it go. But if you are going to insist on holding on to that organization and make sure it and push it forward into the future, things like accountability, like genuine transparency, right? Like actually following through with the commitments that you're making. Like she's saying, they're going to listen to victims. So the first victim that comes out, I expect her to listen to them. I expect her to go through the effort of like following through on it with transparency. And that is how you rebuild trust. You rebuild trust by showing that you are not going to continue the things that dragged you down to be mistrusted in the first place, and that you are going to take accountability, not just for the mistakes you make as you go forward, but for the mistakes of the organization that happened prior to you. Because whether or not you did it, your organization did, and you still represent that organization.
Yeah. Like there, I feel, and maybe is this like a byproduct of our current situation with social media and echo chambers? Like, I feel like I'm in such a vacuum of leadership. Like, I can't think of very many people that I believe are outstanding leaders who I'm excited to watch and follow. Like, is that just because we're becoming so much more accustomed to how human we are, or is it just that it's getting drowned out by the shitty stuff? Or like, where's the good leaders? Where's our artists that are giving us hope for what should be, rather than the place that we are in right now? I don't know, but maybe she'll be one of these leaders.
I mean, if you're looking for good leaders to see that are up and coming, without saying names, there is a person running for office in the largest city in the United States who is a great example of good leadership.
I know you're talking about.
So,
Okay.
That's leadership. That's that. Okay. You talk about the issues, you address the concerns of the people, you speak truth to power, and you don't stand down.
And you answer questions directly with answers.
Oh my goodness. Wasn't that refreshing?
Oh my goodness.
Or do you?
We have to move on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Let's. We can't get into the weeds of that, but
yeah.
But yeah, Eli, when it comes to wouldn't it be nice if this was all genuine? Wouldn't it be sucky if this was just like, I remember I was a teenager when Canada had their first woman prime minister. That was amazing for 2 months. Like, the Conservatives, they knew that they were on the chopping block. They were going to lose it. So then the prime minister stepped down and appointed Kim Campbell, Canada's first woman prime minister. And so she was the captain of a sinking ship. But it was a PR stunt that just didn't work. Like, how can we tell the difference between whether something is sincere or if it's just for the optics? What do you think, Eli?
I think it's a matter of time. And I hate to, I feel like that's like my broken record or my soundbite for this episode, but like, I really think it's a matter of time if they take her seriously as an archbishop and allow her to affect the change that she wants to affect. I mean, like that, not everything, right? There's going to be, she may have some disagreements. I mean, who's to say? But I think if it seems like they're taking her seriously and she's not being like shut down at every turn, or like not, they don't find it very well. I would hate for it to be a case where they're like, here, hold this until we find someone better, right? And then they find some way, like some reason to get rid of her later on, you know, bring something up that they already know about her, like from her past, that they, you know, are going to use against her and be like, oh, well, you got to go because of this, and then put somebody else in. Like, who knows? I would hate to see something like that, but I mean, we're talking about religious institutions here, so.
Stranger things have happened.
I think another important thing here is we can also look at the reasons for why they're putting a person in a particular role, right? And what that person, beyond what they look like or beyond what check boxes on the diversity list they fill, they actually hold, right? In this case, they didn't just put a woman in this position. They put a woman with relatively progressive views, a woman who by Anglican church standards can be considered a feminist, a person who by Anglican church standards can be considered an LGBTQIA plus ally. Like those are markers of good things. Those are reasons for hope. It still depends on how much the organization as a whole gives her credibility. But the fact that they chose someone who didn't just look like something, right? Like that does matter. It's still important to have people in there, even if they aren't the best option in some cases. Like when all your options are bad and you just choose a bad option that like still looks better, that's still better than a bad option who looks bad. But when you can choose a good option who also looks good, that's a good thing. And that's what they did.
And yeah, that's a really fair point. Yeah. I regret having neglected that in my first thought.
Nobody's perfect. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Not everything, just most things. But guys, thanks so much for joining me here today to discuss this rather positive, good news story. It felt good to have something nice to talk about. And thank you, watchers and listeners. What does this story do for you? Does it give you hope for the Anglican Church? Tell us about it below in the towel section down there. And if you would like to hear more from the nonprofits, click over below.